It's 8:02. We can just well get started. We're at 28 signed in, so not too bad for a summer evening. We're going to start off with discussion about the Flex Fund grants. Traci Sletmoe is with us this evening. Uh, how many applications have we gotten in so far?
I think there's only been 2 or 3 applications, so not too many so far.
Well, I hope we can rapidly get that filled in.
I'm sure we'll start seeing them come in soon here.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna share my screen if I can.
Okay, I enabled you to share screen.
Okay. Can you guys see like a white screen with 3 boxes on it?
We see that.
Okay. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about where the funding came from and what's available for townships, and then I'll jump into the requirements and that type of thing and how to apply for the Flex Fund. So first, the Flex Fund is made up of $142.5 million from the Strategic Investment Fund, and then the remaining amount is 25% of the motor vehicle excise tax. That's estimated to be $87.5 million for the biennium. But this is just something that's deposited on a monthly basis into the Flex Fund based on that revenue for that month. From there, the Flex Fund, the legislature made quite a few changes. And so there's a lot of different pots of money that the Flex Fund is split into. First, this yellow box, that is for the DOT to spend on the state roads and state highways. Then from there, what applies to the townships are these 2 green buckets on the far right-hand side. So there's a grants for non-oil townships component, and that is what I'm mostly going to be talking about today. And that's estimated to be a little over $30 million that will be in that pot. And then there are some formula distributions that will also be given out, estimated to be around $20 million. The distributions are handled by the state treasurer, and there's a few different requirements for the distributions versus the grant program. So if you have questions about that, the state treasurer is the best person to get in contact with. I'm going to show you the Flex Fund website, but we have their information on the Flex Fund website now. So you could go there to get their information to ask them questions about that distribution. So that's what's going to the townships this time. In addition, they changed the prairie dog funding. So the first half of the county and township infrastructure fund that makes up the prairie dog that goes out to townships and counties, that first half is going to be distributed like what you're used to in a formula distribution. But then instead of waiting for that second bucket to fill and doing distributions again, it's going to be given out as grants. And what they said is they want it given out or use the same criteria as the Flex Fund. So because of that, and because we know everybody is sick of filling out applications all the time, any project that you would like either Flex Fund or Prairie Dog funding for, you should use the application for the Flex Fund. What we're going to do is we'll get all the projects submitted for the Flex Fund. We'll make a selection for the Flex Fund dollars. Those people will get a letter saying you're awarded Flex Fund dollars, and then we'll start talking to them about contracts and how the whole reimbursement process works. Then there'll be another group of people that will get a letter saying you were not selected for the Flex Fund, but you are selected for prairie dog grants when that money becomes available. So as soon as that bucket fills, they would get another letter letting them know we're going to start contracting and how the reimbursement process and all that works. And then the last group of people will get a letter that, you know, you weren't successful for either of those pots of money. Now I'm gonna jump out of the PowerPoint and go to our website. If you search NDDOT Flex Fund, it should be like the very first link to click on. You can also, if you're just on the DOT's website, it's kind of confusing to get there, but you have to go to construction and planning, then grant and funding programs, state grants, and then you can, Flex Fund is the first one listed here, and you click on that to get to the website. Or you can go, just type in dot.nd.gov/flexfund, and that will get you there as well. That's probably the simplest way, or just Googling NDDOT Flex Fund. So the Flex Fund was created in the previous legislative session, and then the legislature made quite a few changes in this last assembly. So with that, we took, you know, the changes that the legislature made and the comments that we got from people about how the last round worked, which was primarily you're sick and tired of filling out applications, which unfortunately we got to have you fill out an application. But like I said, we're trying to simplify it by not making you apply again for prairie dog grants after that. And then the other thing was that we just didn't have enough information about what kind of projects we were looking for. And so this time, right here, this program guidance has significantly more information than last time. So last time our guidance document was, I think, 2 pages total. This one is like 9 pages. Don't worry, it's not all township stuff. So there's a big portion of it that's counties and cities. So you guys don't need to worry about that. You don't have to go read a 10-page document. The things that matter for you are, starts out with some background on the program, and then there's a definition section. So if you come across a term and you're not exactly sure what we mean by that, please go to this definition section. You know, things like an economic generator, we say, is a value-added business that is frequented by multiple people, businesses, farmers, etc., that impacts the local economy. Examples include elevators, mills, processing plants, grocery stores, gas plants, cities, etc. So could be a lot of different things to mean an economic generator. And where the biggest area that economic generator comes into is this local corridor definition, which has changed from the last round of the Flex Fund. We tried to make it much more broad, so that way you can get creative with explaining how your project is a local corridor. So a local corridor is a primary route for people and goods. It connects on both ends to larger arterials, county major collectors, state highways, economic generators, or local areas of importance. They should support daily commutes, provide access to essential services, and/or connect local roads to regional routes. A local corridor will look different depending on the type of local public agency it's located in. Basically, we know there has not been enough funding in the past for roads. Because of that, there's a huge backlog. So we want to make sure we're funding those primary routes in your township before we get to some of those other, you know, auxiliary routes. You know, hopefully this program is continuing and we can get caught up on that backlog, so that way we can get to those roads in future bienniums. But for now, we want to focus on what are the major routes through your township. It doesn't necessarily need to be a straight section of road. You know, if there's a few turns you got to take, explain that in your application, how that is the primary route in your township, and then it'll count as a local corridor. So, like I said, depending on how creative you want to get, you can probably argue most roads are a local corridor. Let's see, what else? So those are the big ones in this definition section. Under grant programs, there is information that kind of applies to all the different programs. The way it works, it's a reimbursement process if you're awarded funding. So that means that you don't have to send us canceled checks or anything. So in some cases, you can work with your contractor or your engineer to send you an invoice or a progress estimate and just let them know, hey, we have state funds coming in a couple weeks. You would submit those to us along with a form that we'd give you to fill out with some basic project information, and then we could get that money to you. So, but before we reimburse you, sorry, I should have said this first. We want you to send us what that bid price is or what that estimate is. That way we can look at it and make sure that we're good with that cost, because as a township, we will not limit you to the dollar amount that you request. We're going to limit you based on the scope of work that you apply for. So if we understand that these are going to be larger projects, they could be very early on, maybe no design yet. So it's a very early estimate. So you don't have to worry about what happens if these bids come in high. We would take on those additional costs in that case, within reason. If things come in significantly higher, then we maybe have to talk about trimming back scope of work or something like that, depending on what funding we have available. But as much as possible, we would take on that extra amount. So if you're going to provide a local match or a portion of the project is going to be paid for by the township, the way we basically do it is to make the math easy. Say it's $100 project and the township says we're going to contribute $5 to the project. So 5% of the project we're going to contribute. Every estimate that you send us, we're going to say, okay, what's the total amount of this estimate? And 5% the township will need to pay, and then we'll pay the remaining 95%. So the 95% is what we'll send back until you get to the point that the township has contributed all $5 that they said they were going to contribute. And at that point, the Flex Fund would cover 100% of it. So it's shared based on the percentage until you reach that dollar amount that you said in your application you could contribute. We understand as townships, you don't have unlimited funding. You don't have a lot of alternative funding sources. So that is what we plan to do with reimbursements and if anything comes in high. Let's see. Oh, as a township, you do have to work with your county. This could be as little as the county needs to sign a letter that you submit with your application that says they understand if this project is selected, that reimbursements will be sent to them and they would need to forward it to the township. Other than that, the township can fill out the application totally by themselves. They can handle the projects. They can handle sending in reimbursements. It's just our finance department has to send those funds to the county. So then the county would have to forward it to you. So we, on our website, I'll show you where it's at. We have a template for that letter we want them to sign for your application. So you basically just have to plug in the county and like some real basic information, township name, estimated project cost, and I think that's about it. So you don't have to come up with a letter from scratch. That's on the website. Plug it in, send it to your county auditor to get to have them sign that, yes, we understand. We'll have at least a little bit to do. In some cases, counties are willing to help out much more than that. And so maybe your highway department is helping with the estimates, or they're helping submit applications, or sometimes emergency departments within the county want to help with that too. So they can help more, absolutely, but they're at a bare minimum. They need to sign a letter and they need to forward reimbursements on to the township. Okay, then the guidance document gets into the grants for non-oil townships. That is, yeah, applications are due September 19th. I know it's harvest. The legislature really wanted us to get this program out as fast as we could after the legislature ended. And we also want to be able to get projects selected and contracting done before next summer. That way we don't impact construction. Last time we had applications due the end of December, and then by the time contracting everything happened, we lost half the construction season. So there's pluses and minuses to each one, I guess. I know it can be frustrating for you guys, especially who are primarily farmers and you're trying to harvest right now, but know that you can call me and I will help you as much as possible with your application. Please don't wait till the very last week. I imagine I'm going to be pretty inundated by that point, but if you can get me basic information, you know, about get me the estimate and the letter from the county and a map of your project, then I will talk to you on the phone and I will type up the application. I'll send it to you to review it, and you give me the go ahead and I'll submit the application for you. So as long as you're not waiting till the very end. So I'm more than willing to help as much as absolutely possible with getting these applications submitted. As frustrating as it is that you're having to do applications, we had such a good turnout last time. I think that's the reason, a big reason the legislature added more dollars. So please apply. Let them know that this program is needed. If we start having it where we don't have enough people applying to use up the funds, then they're going to say, well, we can use those dollars other places. So priority. So priority is given to projects that match funds for other grants. So if you happen to have any other grants or FEMA projects, anything like that, or private dollars, say you have an industry in your township that does a lot of damage to the roads and they're willing to contribute some money to the project, that is definitely beneficial for your application. You know, at the bare minimum, get a letter of support from them. We want it to improve local corridors. It's a priority. It's not a requirement. If you received preliminary engineering funding last time, then you would get priority again. Organized townships need to levy at least 18 mills as of the end of this year. So we did that. So maybe you could make a few changes. To try to help. And your general fund less than 100,000. Again, these are all priorities. If you're not doing one of these, it doesn't mean that your application is kicked out. It's just one less priority point basically for that. Because they changed the flex fund to have distributions and the grants, we decided that the grants should be for larger projects. So the distribution money should cover maintenance type activities. And so we would like the minimum project cost to be $250,000, because we know there's a huge need and we know these big projects are almost impossible to save up for as a township. And so we really want to get those addressed as much as we can. You can for sure say you have a whole bunch of culverts that need to be replaced, combine them all into one project if you want. With this, they probably need engineering along with them. Include those costs in your application. The Flex Fund can cover the engineering portion, hydraulic study, any of that kind of stuff. That can all be covered by the Flex Fund. And we really want an itemized estimate because these are larger projects and because we, are going to cover overages and stuff. We want to try to prevent projects that going significantly over. If you need help with that, reaching out to a contractor you're used to working with can be helpful. Your county highway department might be helpful with helping come up with an estimate and or referring you to an engineering firm that they use that may be able to do a preliminary estimate for you. Next, the project scoring. So first of all, with this scoring, we do not have point values in here because the way the scoring works is you submit your projects. At the DOT, we're going to go through it and give it a cursory score, and then it goes, so that way we can kind of rank projects, and then it goes to a selection committee who then makes the final ranking to send to the DOT director for what should be funded. So we don't even send to the committee the actual scores that we gave things. We just categorize them kind of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. Because there are so many, the committee members maybe don't necessarily have the time to go through, last time it was over 250 applications. So this is a way for them to kind of have a cursory idea of maybe what would be a good project, but they can absolutely take a project that's, a lower ranked project and move it to the top if they want to. So that's why we don't have exact numbers on the scoring, because it could be, not important at all, and or the different members of the committee have different priorities, and they may tell us, well, give me the ranking if, it reduces maintenance costs. Give me the rankings if that has higher point value than anything else, or that it closes a gap in the network, things like that. So we did try to at least give you examples of what would score higher versus lower. In general, some of these are pretty cut and dry about what it is, but things like the roadway network, safety, those types of things, it's kind of a spectrum. So it's not necessarily that there's only 3-point values with those. It could be a little bit of a range in there. You'll see some of these have this asterisk with them. That means we want you to talk about that in the project needs section. So if you applied last time, you'll know there was a bunch of essay questions at the bottom of the application. This time, there's only one kind of essay type question, and that is your project need. So talk about why the project's needed, explain how this project is a local corridor, talk about how it impacts your roadway network, how it impacts safety, how it impacts your maintenance costs. All those things we want discussed in the project needs section of your application. And then it just, again, goes over the selection. The committee that will review and make the rankings of these is made up of NDTOA, the Association of Counties, the League of Cities, Department of Commerce, Indian Affairs, and then the DOT will have 2 members on it. So each of those entities has 1 member, and then the DOT has 2 members, and that is who makes up the committee. So like I said, we'll select Flex Fund projects, and then the next group of projects we'll select for the Prairie Dog grants. And then after that, it goes into the county and city pot, so you guys don't have to worry about that. So that's the bulk of what you need to know for the township program. When you go to apply, it doesn't matter if you click apply here for Flex Fund under the grants for non-oil townships or under the counties and cities. It's the exact same application. There is some instructions here which just talks through kind of like what we're looking for with some of the questions. So, or it explains like why it is that we need that.
I just went on your email.
And then Yeah, so that has some helpful information in it.
What's that?
This is what the application looks like. When you
Can you
select
hear me?
certain things, it's gonna have more questions that pop up. First of all, this first email address, whoever is filling out the applications should put their email address in there, because when you hit submit, it will send a copy to that
turn it
email
off.
address. If you hit submit and you don't get a copy of your application, please email us at flexfund@nd.gov and we can make sure you get a copy. There might have been a typo or something, or sometimes emails just like to kick things that have attachments to them, but we'll make sure you get a copy. And that's so you know that you have a copy. That email will also at the very bottom of it have a link that says edit this submission. So say you submit it and then you're looking through it and you're like, Fred, I forgot to add something or whatever. You can click on that to open up your application again and make those changes. You'll come in here and you would select county for township. Even if you're the township filling it out, just select county for township. And so, like I said, you'll have different things pop up. So you select county for township. Now it's asking you for the county that you're in. It will give you warnings if you click into something and you don't actually fill it out. We do want a contact person at the county who's at least knows about your project a little bit. And then we do need a chairperson and the auditor, their information, because they'll be required to sign contracts if your project's selected. If you're an organized township, again, there's a letter we want you to attach. So you'd click in here and that will allow you to select that letter to attach it. Then you'll put in the contact info for the township. You may have to repeat some stuff. So the township project contact person very likely is probably the chairperson or the clerk. So you're probably gonna have to put in the information a couple times. But in some cases, people have different people doing that. And then we're just asking you what your mills are and what your general fund balance is. We're not going in to necessarily check what those are. The mills we may get a report on, but the general fund balance, we're not asking for a bank statement or anything like that for that. If you have had an engineer already involved on your project, then you'd select yes here, and then you can enter in the engineering firm's information there. In some cases, you may have two townships or a township and a county, or I don't know, maybe a township and a city that want to apply for a project that crosses the borders of those jurisdictions. So we would call that a multiple jurisdiction project. There is, again, a letter we would want you to submit with that. It just lists out the different local agencies that are involved and who's going to be the lead agency. The lead agency is the one that's going to submit the application for the project. We don't want you to each submit an application for the same project. And also when it comes time for reimbursements, they would be responsible for divvying up, the reimbursements if it needs to be split between multiple agencies and or collecting the local share from those other agencies. Again, I have a template on the website, so you can just drop in the information for the different local agencies for that. Hopefully you should be the ones that are maintaining the road. In some cases, generally this is cities, they have like a state highway and they're gonna put like a shared use path or something along it. So in that case, they have to add a letter from the DOT district saying they're okay with it. Next, you'll put in your total project cost. And then here is where you'd upload the estimate that you have for the project. Next, you'll put in flex funds requested, local funds, and outside funding. Funds requested, local funds, and outside funding should all add up to your total project cost. Outside funding is going to be if you have other grants or if you have money from private entities that are contributing to the project. And then again, the percentage split is going to be based on, flex funds versus your local funds plus your outside funding. That's what's going to determine that percentage that we're going to split your project at until you reach the cap of what you said you were providing. Next, the project location, just a brief description of it. It doesn't need to be like a legal description or anything. And then we want you to upload a map, the project length. This is what phases are included. So if you need a hydraulic study for culverts, make sure you click this preliminary engineering, or if you need design, that's what preliminary engineering is. Anything you potentially want to be reimbursed for needs to be checked here. If you don't check the box, we can't reimburse you for it. Then the next thing is asking, are any of those phases completed? If you check off something's completed, we can't reimburse you for it, because we can't reimburse you for anything until after the award letter and we have contracts in place and we agreed to those costs. So make sure that you're not checking preliminary engineering as a part of the project, but we've finished it if you are not actually done with, design, bid, hydraulic study, whatever it is. This was the PE funded in the last round of flex funds. There's only a handful that were, and you definitely should know if that was you. Then we just want you to choose, in general, what is the primary work type for your project. So there's a whole list here of things that you could choose from. You just choose one. What's kind of the biggest, maybe it's the biggest dollar amount, or it's the most amount of work, or if you had to summarize your project really quick, what would be the biggest thing there? If you're doing any work on a bridge, well, you should check yes, that you're improving or maintaining a paved or unpaved roadway or bridge. And then if it's a major structure, which for the most part, it's only counties and maybe cities that have these bridges, and they have federal bridge ID numbers that we would need put in. And so you guys shouldn't necessarily have to worry about that. But you might have these minor structures. A minor structure would be a bridge that's less than 20 feet for the span of it, or culverts. So then we just want to put in the size of the culvert or the length of the bridge. The rest is kind of self-explanatory. What's the surface type? This average daily traffic, we know, especially for townships, is going to be a guesstimate. So don't worry, don't stress out too much about what this number is. Just give your best guess. The good thing about this round with the Flex Fund is townships have their own pot, so you're not competing against county roads for the funds. You're only going to be competing against other townships. So most other townships also don't have a lot of, traffic on their roads. So speed limit, design speed is more than likely the same as your speed limit. We want to know when you think construction is going to happen, because we just need to verify. Like I said, the motor vehicle excise tax portion of the Flex Fund only gets deposited on a monthly basis. So we got to make sure we're not having everything constructed, next summer, to make sure we have the funds available to reimburse. Ready to be advertised for bid. That would mean you've got design and everything done for the project and you're ready to have that put out for bid. There's a definition of that in that guidance document as well. Here we're going to ask you if it's a local corridor. You would select yes or no, and then here's the project needs section, and in here we would want you to describe why it's a local corridor, and then talk about those other things in the guidance document with that asterisk. So safety, maintenance, roadway network, those types of things. And then finally, you can attach whatever else you want at the bottom here. So you can click this, you can add pictures, you can add letters of support. If you had any studies done, say you have the hydraulic studies already done, you could attach that if you want. Any other things that you want to attach, you attach here, and then you have to click this submit button. Again, once you click submit, the email address from the very beginning does not get a copy of the application, please let me know. Call me, email Flex Fund, email me, so that way we can make sure you get a copy in case you need to edit it or just for your records, so you have that. Okay. Here, this video right here is a kickoff webinar that we held beginning or middle to end of July. It walks through a lot of the same things I'm talking about now, but it's also talking about the county city pot and the bridge pot and that type of thing. So you'll see there is a grants for bridges program that is for those major structures, the ones that are 20 feet or more, and it's for counties. So you wouldn't be applying for anything in there. And then this resources section, I talked a little bit about for non-oil townships. So there's a map here that shows you what the oil producing counties are. They changed the definition for it this year. So it used to be a few more counties, but now it's just the big four. The program guidance, there's another link to it here. If the North Dakota right-of-way, if you are doing something in there, then there's a letter template there, and then there's the district contact information. Here's this letter if you have, multiple townships involved with each other. Computer is going to be slow, but what this looks like. So you'll put in the date, you'll list out, the townships, counties, whoever is involved. And then it just says the lead LPA will lead the project. All LPAs involved agree to work together to determine how the LPA will collect local shares from partner LPAs and how to distribute reimbursements. The Flex Fund will only send reimbursements to the lead LPA and then sign that. So you don't have to fill in too much information there. This is the county letter that I was talking about that you'll need to submit. The date, and then there's a drop down here to pick your county, and then you'll just fill in your township name, name for your project, the project cost, and the estimated construction year, and then your county auditor would need to sign that. So it's just the county is aware of the proposed project being submitted by the township. The county understands that if the project is selected, all reimbursements through the program will be sent to the county to be dispersed to the township. In addition, the county commission chair and county auditor will be required to sign any and all agreements between the DOT and the township. Somewhat straightforward there. If you don't know who your county auditor is, I've got a link to the Association of Counties website that lists the auditor for each county. So you can find their email address and phone numbers here as well. There's some historic bid prices from the DOT that you can look at there if you want to look at that for doing your estimates. These application templates it's a Word document that you can use to put information in. It has all the questions that are on your application. This does not count as your application though. It's a way for you to collect information before you open up that application to actually fill it out. You have to do the online application if you want to submit for the Flex Fund. So this is what it looks like. If you need my help with the application, I'm probably going to fill this out and send it to you to review before I actually submit your application. But this is not the actual application. Don't mail or email me this. It's just a a method for you to start collecting information on your project. Then we have frequently asked questions. Here you can find that Flex Fund email again. If you need help with something, this email goes to, there's 3 of us here at the DOT that have access to that email address. So you can always contact me too. I'll put up my contact information at the end, and I know Larry has it as well. But if for whatever reason I'm out of the office or something, or you can email this Flex Fund and there'll be other people that can look at it. Down here at the very bottom is what I talked about, the state treasurer for the distribution. So there's an email address and a phone number for them if you want to talk to them about those distributions. Okay. I know I just gave you guys boatloads of information, and it's probably too much information, but let me pull up my contact information here. That way, as you go through this, please, please, please call me if you need help or any questions at all. So here, again, the Flex Fund email address, my email address, my phone number. Ben also primarily works on the Flex Fund, so you could also give him a call or email him. But does anybody have questions at this point?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about that minimum project cost of $250,000. I think we may miss a lot of very important projects that are in the $100,000 range. That's a very big number for townships to handle.
So you're not necessarily going to get kicked out if you submit something less, but it's just ideally we'd like to see that size. You know, I know the distributions are obviously not enough to cover $100,000 project, but maybe it makes it slightly easier to start saving towards those projects. Again, we know there's way more needs out there than what we have for Flex Fund dollars. So we're trying to get those really large projects knocked out so that way we can then start addressing other stuff.
Well, I would hope that the $100,000 projects can still be held in consideration until we see if the $250,000 projects use up the whole pot.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna end up short of projects. It's not a good season for townships for township officers. They're all in harvest and we're just starting to put these things together now. It's going to take a bunch of time. I think we're going to run out of time to get it done in one grant round.
Well, like I said, as much as possible, I'm here to help. You know, if you have a project that you really want, but 250,000 is not going to knock you out of it. But that was we'd like to see that. So still apply.
Well, anybody else got any questions out there about the grant process?
You know, I think also, you know, when it comes to project costs, what we saw last time, with again covering overages and stuff, a lot of these projects, if they get estimated the same way, you know, a typical maintenance thing gets estimated, it's maybe not including everything it needs to have. And so those costs actually jump significantly. And so it's easier to get to that $250,000 mark than you would think it is actually. And if need be, you know, combine a couple projects in your township, or there's a few different ways you can
Right.
get around that.
I also gonna mention that the where the 18 mill levy is a priority point for grants, and the $100,000 maximum in the general fund are priority points for grants. They are a requirement for the direct payments, and the prairie dog payment also requires that now. So a lot of townships might be taken by surprise by that. So, any other questions out there?
You said that we could combine with another township, like if we have a route to certain seed plants or elevators or something that go through two townships.
Yep.
To get our dollar amount up.
Yep, you could absolutely combine that way. Also, something I forgot to mention with the local corridors, you know, connecting to highways or economic generators and stuff, that doesn't necessarily have to happen within the boundary of your township. As long as it does, like, eventually meet up with that, and, you know, that's the kind of primary route that people take to get there, that would count as well. You know, we know not every township has highways and things that run through it. So it's not that it has to happen within the boundaries of your township. It's just that needs to be the route to get to those places.
I believe actually the project that involves more than one township will score a little higher.
Yep, there's some scoring for if you have, you know, multiple townships or a township in a county or whatever. Also, so if you were to do a township in a county, whoever is the lead agency is the bucket that it would fall into. So if you're saying the lead agency is the township, then it would go into the grants for non-oil townships bucket. If the county applies as the lead agency, it would be put into the grants for non-oil counties and cities bucket. So it's strictly based on the LPA for splitting the applications up into their respective pots.
What were the percentages that were funded the last go around? Any idea?
I want to say approximately 10% of the set aside went to townships. I will say, so the ranking that was sent to by the committee to the director, the director makes the absolute final selection. Last time the set aside was for non-oil counties and townships within non-oil counties that levied at least 18 mills. So last time it was a requirement for the 18 mills. So they got 25% of the flex fund at a minimum. We had a lot of townships apply. Well, like 10% of the applications were townships. Unfortunately, they could not score. They didn't score as well against county projects. Obviously, counties have significantly more resources than a township does. So Initially, that list had more county projects, but the DOT director took away a couple county projects to add more townships to make it approximately the amount when you looked at what was applied for versus what was selected. But I think it was around 10%. So for this set aside, that'd be like 4.3 million, I think, would have gone to townships.
So 4.3 million, if you had 250,000, that would be 16 projects basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But, you know, this time you guys have your own bucket. Granted, there's more townships that are eligible because they changed that definition of oil producing, but the grant alone is 31 million. So that 250,000, that's, you know, 120 projects if they're only at that 250,000. Which, I mean, this last time we had 60 some projects in total that were selected. So that's another reason for, I guess, for wanting a little bit higher value is if we choose a bunch of $10,000 projects, it's a lot to get to that 31 million. But for two of us to handle.
There you go.
But again, yeah, the legislature obviously made a lot of changes this time. As the program goes forward, a lot of these things can change as we get some of those needs, large needs addressed. All right. How do I? I'll hang around just in case there's more questions at the end. You're muted, Larry.
Okay, thank you, Traci. We really appreciate the clarification you brought us here for this. And your willingness to help us is also very much appreciated. Anybody else have any more questions for Traci before she relaxes? Well, I guess we'll move on to other topics then. We're also going to talk about the requirement for townships to hold a budget hearing. A lot of questions about that. We'll start off. Anybody want to ask a question on that? This the budget hearing has been the normal practice for counties and cities to hold a budget hearing in September, between September 7th and October 7th each year. It's their normal process. Township used to be exempt from it because our levy was, or our budget was under $100,000. But somehow in the last drafting of 1176, that $100,000 exemption was eliminated from the final bill. So townships became roped into the same thing that counties and cities always do. And I guess what we've recommended that the townships do is just, you're supposed to give your meeting information, date, time, and place to your auditor. That should have been done by August 7th, so that they could include it in the notice that they send out to all the property owners. And then when that day comes, you just have your budget available, and then if somebody asks, you just tell them that the budget was approved by the voters back in March. It's not going to change. Just you will see these numbers on your tax statement when it comes in December, and record who showed up for the meeting. That's all you got to do with that. So, any questions on the budget hearing requirement?
Need to get that changed back to $100,000. It's just another layer of bureaucracy for a small township. You can barely get 5 people to show up for.
Well, agreed, but I don't think $100,000 is sufficient anymore. I'd say $200,000,
I agree.
or just exempt townships completely. I'd also like to see the ability to for a township to just levy 18 mills without having to prove a budget to get 18 mills, because that 18 mills against an unknown final taxable valuation is it's a moving target. It's just too hard to hit. Oh, and come the end of the budget period, and if there's been a significant increase in the taxable valuation, all of a sudden the township's at 17.9, and that doesn't qualify. So hopefully we can get that improved a little bit. Any more questions on the budget hearing? Well, the other thing on the list there was the requirement for townships to have a public comment time on their agenda for their meetings. This is a requirement for all government bodies now, is to have a comment period during your meetings. And we our association has adopted a comment policy. The purpose of a comment policy is to control the thing
Okay, so
in
now
case-
where do you want me to go look?
in case you have somebody that comes in and wants to kind of take over your meeting by with endless comments. You can regulate what they can talk about, when they can talk about it, and for how long. So it's an important step to have that policy in place. So that is available on the website. It's right now it's
Larry, this is Jamie Tennyson. I do have a couple examples that I can send out to anybody that would like to have one too. I guess the one that we adopted, and also one that I believe the the state water boards or the county water boards adopted through their attorney. So if anybody wants one, I can send it out if you get in contact with me.
Right. Okay, on the website, right now it's under latest news. And here I've got a PDF, a fillable PDF. You can download this, fill in your township name up here and the date. And you can read through that and see if that matches or is something that you would want to adopt for a policy. So any more questions on the public comment policy?
I would encourage everybody to use the form that is on our state website so that all townships are on a uniform policy.
Since we have no meetings till our next annual meeting, can we adopt that policy at that meeting?
Excuse me?
Since we have no meetings for our township until our next annual meeting, can we adopt this policy at our next annual meeting?
You certainly could. Any more questions?
Does the policy need to be approved by some of the voters in the township or just the board?
I believe the board could do it. The board should do it to cover themselves for the board meetings. For the of course, the annual meeting is more of an open floor for everybody, so it's probably more important for the board meetings. Any more questions out there?
So Larry, this is Julie. I think that PDF file, that fillable PDF file is absolutely a wonderful idea. That's pretty simple for everybody to just go on and get that filled out. To have at your meeting. So, and then I have a question for the budget hearing meeting. Is that something that has to be a certain time? I mean, like if nobody shows up but you're a few people, can you be there for 5 minutes or do you have to be there for 40 minutes or?
No, I don't, there's no minimum time, just post the time, in a notice.
Okay.
They're gonna work on the gravel trailer.
Any more questions out there?
Larry, Fred Rios, can you
Hello,
hear
Fred.
me? Say, I'm gonna have my township meeting on the 9th of September. And it's gonna be a general meeting. I already checked with our county auditor, which is Don Roan and everything, and discuss the budget and everything for my little township, Captain's Landing Township and everything. And I listened to everything there. And I listened to the Flex Fund and the Prairie Dog Fund coming up and everything. Is there anything that I should discuss with my residents over here about the whole thing?
Well, I think Traci gave us a pretty good rundown on the grant.
Yes, she did. And that is really great. And I can call Traci over at the Capitol too and talk to her also before my meeting and everything if I get any questions like that.
Right.
And that's all the thing that I got. That's about it because we're going to be talking about the budget, like you said. You know, we're at 18% meal levy, you know, and stuff. So I'll tell you, we're up to standards and everything in my little Captain's Landing Township. So,
Good for you.
okay.
Got it handled then.
Yeah.
Mine too,
Well,
tomorrow's gonna be busy too. Mine too, and tomorrow's gonna be busy too. More.
hi, Leon. How you doing?
Good.
Thank you for taking care of our district, Leon, and everything. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be with the township. They just won't let me get out of it. I'm going on 35 years already, so I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Just keep at it, Fred.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, we got a working township. Let me tell you, team players and everything. I got 4 good people. My other 2 board of supervisors are great. My clerk and my treasurers are just great. So we're doing great. And we're taking care of our railroad bridge and everything. And we haven't had no complaints or anything like that on the work that's going and stuff like that.
Oh,
Doing good, Fred.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You
And
bet.
I'll get a hold of Traci over at the state capitol if I got any questions or anything like that. And thank you very much, Larry. And we'll talk to you later, Leon and Larry
bet.
then. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you for your years of service, Fred, and for being a regular attendee at all our annual meetings in December.
Yes. And I'm going to keep on going. You see, I'm going to be 89 or 88 my next election. And they said, we're going to keep you there until you're 91 and 94 and so forth. So I said, I don't care. So I don't care. I'll keep on doing my job. Okay, so we're done with the meeting then, Larry, or what?
Well, if we don't have any more questions, I guess we've run over an hour here, so we can shut it down anytime.
Okay.
One more chance for a question.
I just like to thank everyone for attending the meeting tonight. There's a lot of information that went on here, and if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Get a hold of Larry or myself, or your directors on any of your district directors that you can reach out to. As Traci had said, both her and Ben are available to make sure that they can answer questions for you too. So Traci had emphasized on how important this is, as well as what we need to really make sure that we do apply for this funding and get these projects finished that we do have out there. Anytime we go to the legislative session and if we come back and that funding isn't used, it's going to be very difficult for us to find additional funding for the upcoming years. So make sure that you go back to your townships and see what you can work with. And like we've told you before, make sure that you can work with 2 townships or 3 townships or whatever, and you'll get them dollars. It's a little bit higher than I think most of us would have liked to have seen, that $250,000 amount, but like Traci had explained, even if it's under that, please submit that application. Don't consider yourself that you're going to be rejected because of that, just in case that there aren't those large projects out there. So with that, I'll let everyone go, and I hope everyone has a good evening, and thanks again for attending.
Well, I'll ask one more time. Anybody got anything else they want to talk about, ask about? Going once, going twice? We're gone. Thank you for joining us tonight, and hope you found something of value. And we'll see you next month.